Good afternoon. Today I'm going to be interviewing Christian Miller, my son. I'm Peter Miller. He's just entering the recording studio right now. And I'm going to be asking him about his recent visit to the Rokeby Museum. What can you tell me about the Rokeby Museum, Christian Miller?
Well, at this museum, I learned about the Underground Railroad. There was a lot of old things such as tools and stuff, and I got a tour of the place. The Rokeby Museum is also up in Ferrisburg, Vermont, next to Lake Champlain.
Okay. What was it used as? Who was there? What went on there?
Well, the Robinsons lived there, and they were Quakers and also abolitionists. An abolitionist is someone that fights against slavery and tries to make it stop.
Okay, so these were Quakers and abolitionists. Were they kind of subsistence farmers, or what can you tell me about the Robinsons?
They were merino wool farmers, and they were very wealthy.
Oh.
So, they...
Rich farmers, what an oddity. So, was there actually a tunnel and tracks for this Underground Railroad?
No. The Underground Railroad is the name given towards the end of the Civil War to it because it was secret.
Okay, so underground being kind of like hidden and undercover. Okay. So why was this up in Ferrisburg, Vermont? We didn't really have much for slavery here in Vermont. I mean, how is it related to the Underground Railroad?
Well, once a slave escapes from its owner, they may make it up to Vermont or somewhere around here, but they could still be captured and taken back to their owners, even if we don't have slavery.
How did that work?
Well, someone who sees a slave could report them, and anyone that helps a slave would be a person that may be arrested.
Okay. So this is some sort of a federal law that people had to return their slaves to their owners?
Yes.
Okay. Was this Underground Railroad well organized, and was it well organized and well structured as an organization?
No, it was very sloppy.
Sloppy?
For the way it was
They had their lives on the line.
It was basically someone knows someone who knows someone. If you know the person and they've helped another slave, you send it on to them, and you hope that they have someone else to pass the slave on to get them up to Canada.
Okay, so when you said sloppy, I'm assuming you didn't mean that that people were sloppy in how they did it. It just was not really a...
It was sloppily put together.
Was it put together?
Barely.
So there was some sort of centralized organization?
It wasn't centralized, but there's people that did it over and over.
Okay. So this was just a movement of people who were all abolitionists, who were just aiding in the moving slaves on up the line, just with the people and resources they knew. What were the consequences to a person who was helping slaves?
Fines or maybe even arrest.
Okay.
Many were put in jail for harboring slaves.
Okay, was this an all-white movement, or was it all black, or how did this work?
No, it was some of both. it was mainly white because they could be out in the open.
Okay. But there were free slaves as well, or freed slaves, correct?
Correct.
Okay. Do we know much about the roots?
No, we have some of the evidence in old letters, but it's mostly all guessed from how they went.
Okay, so we guess where they went, and we know a little bit from letters and a few documented cases.
And we know there's a couple stops in different places.
Okay, so we do know of some stops. Okay, why don't we know more about this?
Well, the slaves themselves were illiterate, and they sometimes would be able to have someone else write something for them.
Okay.
But most people had to keep it secret or they might go to jail.
Okay, so they didn't want any documented evidence against them either, while this whole movement was taking place underneath outside of the law of the United States of America at that point. Okay. Where were these slaves going, and why on earth is there a stop way up in Ferrisburg, Vermont?
Well, they're going to Canada or Mexico. They're going from slavery down south to somewhere free. And Canada accepts them as a citizen and a normal person, black or white.
Okay, so they had full citizenship in Canada?
Yes.
Wow. Okay. Well, at Rokeby, were there any hidden rooms or secret chambers or anything like that?
No, once I got to Vermont, there's not really any slave catchers in Vermont. It was all people trying to protect the slaves, basically. But there's no recorded evidence of there being slave catchers there. But there was in places around, such as New York.
Okay. So the escaping slaves, the fugitive slaves, were fairly free to stay in the house? Were they willing to be out in the open also?
Yes, many of them even worked on their farm and helped them around with different labor and got paid.
Anything else you'd like to say about the slaves, or anything else about your visit to the Rokeby Museum?
Well, most of the people that were freed were blacks, and they were men.
Were freed?
That had
Or you mean escaped?
Or gotten their freedom.
Okay.
But the women and their children rarely got to somewhere safe. So most of the men were very disappointed and upset because of that.
Because they left behind their families, you mean?
Because they weren't with their families.
Okay. Anything else?
No.
Okay, I think the studio needs you again right now. And thank you for hearing our interview with Christian Miller on the Rokeby Museum.